If you squeeze with all 5 fingers at the same time, you're tightening your grip too early, and at the moment of contact, you kill all potential for spin. Today, we'll cover brushing the ball to generate more spin on your loops. I'll loop 2 balls first. Pay close attention to whether the contact timing is the same for both. Let's watch the first one. Now, the second one. Was the contact timing the same? Was the second one slower or faster? That's right, it was slower. So, if you rush the contact point, will you get much spin? The answer is no. So, watch closely as I loop with heavy spin. Observe the contact point. I'm hitting the ball as it's falling, right after its peak. If I try to generate spin by hitting on the rise, the shot is inconsistent and lacks spin. Even though I'm trying my hardest to add spin, it just doesn't work. You're not properly using the downward force of the incoming backspin. The incoming backspin is a trap, but it's also the very tool you can use to create your own spin. The reason you can't generate spin is that you're making contact on the rise or just before the peak of the bounce. There's a huge difference in the forces involved between looping a rising ball and lifting a falling ball. To get maximum speed, you must hit the ball on the rise. For maximum power, you must hit at the peak of the bounce. And for maximum spin, you must make contact just as the ball starts to fall. It's the same principle as serving. For a heavy backspin serve, the lower the ball drops before contact, the more spin you can generate by using its downward momentum. Against backspin, if I want to loop for speed, I'll contact the ball on the rise. If I want to hit a power loop, I'll contact it at the peak of the bounce. And if I want to loop with heavy spin, I must wait for the early falling phase. Many players work hard on a heavy backspin serve, but when the opponent pushes it back, you rush your loop and can't brush the ball properly. You must wait for the ball to start falling before you loop. The heavier the opponent's push, the more you must wait before attacking, on both your forehand and backhand. The more spin on the incoming ball, the more likely you are to hit the net if you rush your loop. Now, let's define the rising phase and the peak of the bounce. Using a backspin ball as an example, hitting the ball right after it bounces is the rising phase. The peak of the bounce is when I contact the ball at its highest point. And when I contact the ball after it has passed its peak and starts to drop, that's the falling phase. Okay, the second key point is that many amateur players use what I call fake brushing. So what is fake brushing? Watch this stroke. It looks good, right? The motion is fluid and looks great, but it generates no spin. Let's have my partner block it. See? Even when I accelerate, there's no spin. This is what I call fake brushing. True brushing comes from the tip of the racket. The more focused the force at the tip, the more spin you get. Without a big arm swing, just by using the racket tip to brush, the ball is already very spinny. My partner's block is the same, but by brushing with the racket tip, I can generate much more spin. This works on the same principle as serving. Spin doesn't come from your arm, it comes from the tip of your racket. Using a clock face analogy, if you use your racket tip to brush from 5 o'clock up to 2 or 1 o'clock, you'll generate massive spin. This upward motion of the racket tip is driven by your fingers. If you just swing your entire arm from 5 to 1 o'clock, you'll get the ball over the net, but you won't get enough spin. After the fingers initiate the brush, the forearm and upper arm complete the power part of the stroke. In tennis, the ball is heavy so fingers aren't as crucial. But a ping pong ball is light, so even a small amount of finger force can create immense spin. If you just use your arm in a big sweeping motion, no matter how fast you swing, the ball won't have much spin. Now, watch. I'm keeping my arm relatively still and just using the racket tip to accelerate and create spin. A standard block won't work against this type of spin. The ball will fly off the racket. Let me show a comparison again. The loop with no spin is more of a flat hit. But the heavy spin loop has a high, kicking arc, almost like a side spin topspin. The trajectories are completely different. The racket tip is what helps you accelerate the brush. But if you try to generate power from the racket tip alone, it's very limited. The tip isn't as strong as your arm, and your arm isn't as strong as your body. The larger the muscle group, the more power and quality you can generate. The smaller the muscle group, the more spin and finesse you can create. For power, don't swing your arm, use your body. For spin, don't swing your arm, use your fingers. So, what if you want both heavy spin and power in your loop? Step 1. Initiate the sharp brushing motion with your fingers. Step 2. After initiating the brush, your arm drives through for power. Combine these two actions, and your shot will be much more dangerous because it now has forward drive. This way, your loop will have both heavy spin and power, while maintaining high consistency. You need to separate the brushing and the power generation into two distinct actions. Don't try to do only one for the entire stroke. A pure spin loop is easy for opponents to smash, while a pure power loop has a high error rate. The brushing action needs to be very small and focused. The key is that brushing shouldn't rely on your upper arm or forearm, it must come from your fingers. Using your wrist will dissipate the power. Using only your forearm and upper arm won't create spin. You must rely on your fingers to channel all that subtle force into the racket tip to generate spin. For the third point, I'll demonstrate two different brushing motions. See if you can spot the correct one. Let's have my partner block. Here's the first one. As instructed, I'm rotating the racket tip. This is the first example. And the second. The second ball was clearly spinnier. But what's the difference? The first motion was a forward pushing action. The second one wrapped around the ball. The first one, the pushing brush, is very common among amateurs. What does wrapping the ball mean? It means your racket follows a curved path around the ball. Many amateurs push their wrist forward when brushing. No matter how fast you do this, you won't generate spin. Think about your local club, you've probably seen a lot of players looping with this motion. The pros, however, loop like this. A loop with this motion will never have heavy spin. If this is you, changing your technique will make you much spinnier. So, how do we fix this? First, don't contact the ball from directly behind. During your backswing, your racket shouldn't be positioned to push straight through the back of the ball. You need to feel like you are contacting the ball slightly from its right side, for a right-hander. Watch my backswing in contact point. After contact, watch the racket tip. See how the racket tip moves inward, carrying the ball? This is the result of contacting from the side. Pushing straight from behind completely misses this crucial action. This wrapping action means you are brushing around the surface of the ball. You're not pushing the ball forward or lifting it straight up. At the point of contact, you wrap around it. It's like peeling a potato, you shave around its curve. We just stop the motion partway through. As I always say, your fingers should guide the racket in an arc. That's how you wrap the ball. You're not just flicking your wrist or lifting up. Watch closely, I'll show you the wrong way first. This is incorrect. Now, here is the correct way. The spin is immediately different. This allows for a longer contact time on the rubber. If you just push forward, the ball leaves the racket instantly. There's no time to generate any spin. Most importantly, this wrapping motion will dramatically increase your consistency. For example, when you're pulled wide and your footwork isn't perfect, watch how I handle this ball. How did I get that on the table? Because I focused solely on the brushing action. What we're learning isn't just how to loop from a perfect position, but how to get the ball on the table even when you're off balance. The fourth key point, using your fingers. Many players can't feel how to use their fingers to generate force. For penhold players, the position of your middle finger creates a more ideal pivot point than for shakehand players. My grip isn't as strong as the three fingers on the back of a penhold blade. For penhold players, with your back three fingers supporting the blade, you must train the strength of your middle finger. To practice, lift your ring and pinky fingers off the blade and use only your middle finger to feel the pressure of pushing the racket. You can curl the other two fingers or let them hang free. The goal is to isolate and feel the force from your middle finger. My coach was a penholder, and he used to say that if a penholder can't generate force with their middle finger, their forehand will never be a threat. A penholder can really lock the blade in place with that finger, something we shakehand players can't do. So penholders must focus on using that middle finger. So how do shakehand players practice this? Loosen your back three fingers and grip the racket only with your thumb and index finger. If you can't feel your fingers working, just pinch the blade with your thumb and index finger and try to brush the ball that way. Let's have a block. See? The ball is incredibly spinny. and that friction is generated entirely by my thumb and index finger. My other 3 fingers aren't on the handle at all, they're not involved in the shot. So you have to understand that if all your fingers squeeze at once, you're just gripping the racket tightly. Squeezing the handle is an action that should happen after you've initiated the brushing and acceleration. For a shakehand forehand, I rely on my index and middle fingers. They apply pressure, and then all my fingers grip to stabilize the shot. This completes the brushing action automatically. If you squeeze with all 5 fingers at the same time, you're tightening your grip too early. And at the moment of contact, you kill all potential for spin. It's like pinching someone. 2 fingers create a sharp pressure. 5 fingers is more like a gentle massage. If all your fingers are squeezing hard, you're just clenching the racket. It has nothing to do with creating brush and acceleration. This is a key detail. I want you all to practice it exactly as I've described.